Let's listen in to the defendant.
Thank you very much, everybody. Today was breathtaking. This room, you saw what went on. It was breathtaking and amazing testimony. This is a trial that should have never happened. This is a case that should have never been filed. And it was really an incredible day. Open your eyes. And we can't let this continue to happen to our country. On another matter, the economy has just been reported to be doing very badly. The stock market's way down, and some horrible numbers came out, including very high numbers on inflation, and in particular gasoline at $7.50 in California. That usually leads the way. It's going to happen here too. And very importantly, as you look at the various colleges all over the country and beyond colleges, because it's happening in other areas too. You see what's happening on the front having to do with Palestine and Israel and protests and hate, anger. Biden is sending an absolutely horrible message. Horrible message. He has no idea how to message. He can't speak. He can't put two sentences together. He doesn't know what to do. This is not our president. This is somebody that shouldn't be doing what he's doing because he can't do it. He can't do it well. We're having protests all over. He was talking about Charlottesville. Charlottesville was a little peanut, and it was nothing compared, and the hate wasn't the kind of hate that you have here. This is tremendous hate, and we have a man that can't talk about it because he doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand what's going on with our country. He doesn't understand that all over the world we're being laughed at as a country because of him and his administration. And today we had, I hear, because I was forced to be here, and I'm glad I was because it was a very interesting day in a certain way, but the U.S. Supreme Court had a monumental hearing on immunity, and the immunity having to do with presidential immunity. And I think it was made clear, I hope it was made clear, that a president has to have immunity, or you don't have a president, or at most you can say it would be a ceremonial president. That's not what the founders had in mind. They're not talking about ceremonial. We want presidents that can get things done and bring people together. So I heard the meeting was quite amazing, and the justices were on their game. So let's see how that all turns out. But again, I say presidential immunity, very powerful presidential immunity is imperative, or you practically won't have a country anymore. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, the defendant, Donald J. Trump, after this third day of testimony, former tabloid magnate David Pecker coming out, not attacking witnesses, not attacking jurors, so his lawyers can be happy about that. Going into campaign issues, legitimate campaign issues, but as always, worth a fact check. So let's bring in CNN's Daniel Dale. Daniel, we heard talk of the stock market down, which is true. Inflation up, gas in California, Charlottesville being a peanut. Give us what you got.
Yeah, so Charlottesville, I mean, former President Trump said the Charlottesville protest in 2017 was a little peanut compared to what we're seeing now on college campuses, pro-Palestinian protesters. I guess that's a matter of opinion, on which I can't render a definitive fact check. But let's remember the fact that a woman, a counter-protester, was murdered there in Charlottesville. We've had no reports of anything like that happening on any college campus to date in these pro-Palestinian protests. He said the hate in Charlottesville paled in comparison to the hate we're seeing there. Again, a matter of opinion, but let's remember there was neo-Nazi and other white nationalist hate in Charlottesville. So remember those points. On gas prices, former President Trump again said it just been announced California gas is $7.50 per gallon. There always are, Jake, some outlying, rural, deserted stations in California that have high prices. But today's average, according to AAA, is $5.41 per gallon. And then on the stock market, yeah, it has fallen today in the wake of the GDP report. But if you look, I have the S&P numbers right in front of me. If you look at 1 year, it's up 25%. Year to date, it's up more than 6%. 6 months, it's up 22%. So we have had a bit of a decline, but let's not suggest that the stock market has plummeted under President Biden or in the last year in general.
Daniel, just a point of clarification. I don't want to be accused of fact-checking our fact-checker, but $5.41 you noted as the average gas price. That's the average gas price in California.
In California,
yes,
yeah.
in California. You didn't specify because in the United States as a whole, it's $3.65.
That's right. I always appreciate a good fact check. Thank you, Jake.
All right, Dan. Years ago, I was a fact checker. That was how I got into this business.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Always good to have you in here. But, I mean, Jim, you got to be happy that he's at least, generally speaking, sticking to things he's allowed to talk about and not violating the gag order.
His lawyers have to be happy about that,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
I think no doubt about that. I mean, getting it, just the fact that he's mentioning Charlottesville has to make his campaign cringe at this point, right? Like that just brings back all those bad memories about that issue that was a really bad issue for him at the time. I was in the White House when all that was unfolding, and to bring that back now was a big mistake on his part politically to raise that. But the rest of it is campaign rhetoric, right? And you also saw him, he looked a little tired. It was a long day for him. I don't think it was a good idea to kind of go out and do that press avail in any way, shape, or form if he's not going to go out, be sharp, and make his points.
Yeah, and Jim raises a really interesting point, David and Jamie, which is why bring up Charlottesville? Like, that is one of the ugliest moments of his presidency. And yes, we are seeing protests all over the country. Most of them peaceful, most of them in support of Palestinian rights. There has been some anti-Israel sentiment, and there has been some anti-Semitic sentiment, without question. But that's not what the neo-Nazis in the Unite the Right rally were doing. That was not a peaceful march that turned into something ugly. It was ugly from the word go.
Right. And actually, he started this at least this morning. I just quickly was looking through. This is a new theme that he's playing on. He thinks, and perhaps rightly, that people are very upset about what's going on college campuses, just like the border. He sees it as an issue to bring up. Just to go back to when he came out of the courtroom, the first thing he said, and I think this Daniel Dale would agree was actually true, he said, today's testimony in court was breathtaking.
Fact check, true.
It was breathtaking.
Maybe not in the way he intended.
but not in the way he intended.
What was the most breathtaking thing for you today in court? I was personally surprised to hear David Pecker calling White House aides, Hope Hicks and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, now Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and asking them their opinion of whether Karen McDougal's hush money contract should be extended, and them saying, yes, that is breathtaking.
Right. And actually, from there I went, we've talked about Hope Hicks maybe being a witness. I turned to David and I said, do you think Governor Sanders may be called as a witness in this case? There was one thing that wasn't sort of as shocking as that, but I wonder from the jury's point of view whether it speaks to David Pecker's credibility. There are sometimes things that people just say in a certain way and it cuts through. And this was about when David Pecker says to Michael Cohen, why should I pay? I just paid $30,000 for this doorman story. Now you're asking me to pay $150,000 for the Karen story. I said I'm not a bank. In other words, and this plays to Trump wasn't paying him back for these things. I just think little anecdotes like that. Yes, the defense is saying you didn't remember that Hope Hicks was at a meeting. I think that weighed against something like this actually helps the prosecutors with Pecker's credibility.
And I would just say, back to the former president coming out there, this has been a shift in strategy in the last couple of days. Like, all of his outside court appearances had been solely focused on railing against
Michael
these
Cohen and
prosecutions and witnesses. And so I don't know if it's the waiting for the gag order ruling or the threat of that, or he's gotten advice that just says you have this opportunity in front of a microphone every day with so much attention on it. Use it for the purpose of your campaign. But this is now the second day in court where when we see him, he is on an anti-Biden, more political message than he is on his legal message.
Yeah, I completely agree that possibly the threat of the gag order is sort of hanging over this, right? And the judge may be looking at this and wondering, well, can this man really reform his behavior, or how serious do the sanctions need to be? He struck me as quite low energy, to coin a phrase, borrow one, I guess.
Well, you really know how to hurt a guy.
But it's a step in the right direction. I think the thing that, his lawyers must be happy about this, I completely agree with Jim. But, all of these comments he's been making on video and truthing or whatever, they're currently the subject of this contempt hearing, but the prosecutors also may have the option of introducing those comments in trial. Because these are typically these statements from the defendant are admissions that can be entered into evidence by the prosecution. So the government may be able to say at the end of the day, like, just play a series of clips from the last week or two saying, this is what this man was doing while he was on trial. He was railing against you, he was attacking witnesses, he was disobeying the judge's orders.